Right, so now let's talk about the second part in the middle that we can go along together. So first thing, the essential question is, what are the three reciprocal functions and what are the three inverse trig functions? Let's start with the left column. Reciprocal of sine function, and this is my trick, sine starts with S, right? Reciprocal of sine. And sine, it starts with S, so then the letter that doesn't start with S in a trig function is the C. And reciprocal of sine function is actually going to be cosecant. Okay. Reciprocal of cosine. Cosine starts with C, so your reciprocal function starts with the different letter S. And secant is the reciprocal of cosine. Reciprocal of tangent. It has a name tangent in it, and the reciprocal is going to be cotangent. Okay, cotangent. All right, so then coming back to the top here, cosecant is reciprocal of sine. And you can also say the sine is reciprocal of cosecant. They're reciprocals of each other, okay? So if you actually multiply the two reciprocals together, if you multiply sine with cosecant, which is 1 over sine, if you multiply reciprocals each other, it's equal to 1. Okay, so let's do the same thing with secant. Secant is reciprocal of cosine, which means you can say that the cosine is a reciprocal of secant. And that means if you multiply them together, if you multiply cosine and secant together, then this is also equal to 1. Just got to remember that multiplying reciprocals together is always going to be equal to 1. And I'll write it here. Product of reciprocals is always equal to 1. Okay. Then reciprocal of tangent is cotangent. So that means cotangent is 1 over tangent, which means tangent is a reciprocal of cotangent. And if you multiply them together, tangent multiplied to cotangent, again, multiplying the reciprocal is going to equal to 1. That's it. Okay. Now on the right side, inverse sine. You write it as sine inverse of x. Okay. This means because it has a domain from -1 to 1 and range, which you should memorize, from -π/2 to π/2. Okay. It means you're looking at the sine values, meaning you should find solutions only in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. And again, that's because range is from -π/2 to π/2. Just in a unit circle, think about this. π/2 is up here. Okay, π/2 is this way. And then -π/2 is going clockwise, opposite direction, -π/2. That's quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. You should only find answers in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4. Quadrant 2, 3 are ignored. Okay. Inverse cosine. Inverse cosine. That one has domain from -1 to 1. Range is from 0 to pi. So 0 to pi in a unit circle. 0 is right here, going all the way to pi. That's in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. So that means you should look at cosine values only in quadrant 1 and quadrant 2. And again, that's because the range is from 0 to pi. 0 to pi is only in quadrant 1 and 2. Inverse tangent. inverse tangent have domain of all real numbers. Oh, actually, I'm going to put ARN. And range, it's from negative pi over 2 to pi over 2, similar to inverse sine, but open parentheses, right? Because of the asymptotes, they're not included. So then in a unit circle, I'm going to have to go down bottom. In a unit circle, negative pi over 2 is down here, and pi over 2 up here. So it's similar to inverse sine, except these are open circle. These two are not part of the solutions. So still quadrant 1 and quadrant 4, and not including the pi over 2 radians. So I'm going to say it means you should only look at only in quadrant 1 and quadrant 4, but negative pi over 2 and pi over 2 not included. So pi over 2 and negative pi over 2 are not solution. They should always be taken out from your answers. They cannot be your solutions, okay?